Wow, what a game this was. And you knew that the Cascadia Derby playoff series is not going to be finished after 90 minutes. You knew that this one was going to go to extra time, and it's going to even go all the way to the penalty kick shootout. And I'm not going to lie, when Ruidíaz scored this volley in the 93rd minute, I actually celebrated like the Quakes just scored. I mean, I so want this to get to extra time because of the way that things have gone throughout this game, that I'm just so glad that it did. And in extra time, we have some more magical moment and just more kind of twist and turn of a tale of this game. And ultimately, it went all the way to penalty, and the Timbers, of course, won the penalty kick shootout. But let's actually talk about what happened in the beginning. And let's just say that if you are a person that watched this whole game and you live in the East Coast, I salute you in terms of watching this whole game, because you could have easily tuned out after the first 68 minutes. I mean, the first 68 minutes was just, yeah, it was very lifeless. And it was just, the Timbers was just trying to defend for their life. They were pretty much just parking the bus. And it's kind of a weird, interesting kind of tactics that Savarese decided to do. I thought he would maybe potentially try to go to get that goal early on because of the fact that, you know, the Sounders don't have their best defender, Chad Marshall. But they just never did. They decided that, you know what, we're just going to sit back and hopefully we can basically get out of CenturyLink with a 0-0 draw. And knowing the Sounders and how much they have trouble breaking down teams that tends to just park the bus throughout the game, you know, it looked like it was kind of a good kind of tactics, and it's shown. Like, the Sounders, they had a whole ton of trouble trying to break down this Timbers team. Like, you know, obviously some will say that Rodon injury was probably one of the big impact of this, because he would have probably bring more attacking fear, but still, they just had a whole tons of trouble breaking them down. The passing was very slow. The final ball was just not there for the Sounders, and it looks like it was going to be a very frustrating night. But until when the clock hits the 68th minute, and when Ruidíaz scored that equalizer, which, by the way, Ruidíaz, he could have had a hat-trick in this game. He had a look about 13 minutes ago where he was wide open in the box, and I cannot believe he actually missed that. I thought for sure the Sounders were fine. That was the moment for the Sounders. I thought for sure that they were going to get that goal, but they didn't. And eventually Ruidíaz did get that goal. And, you know, Jeff Antonella, you know what Jeff Antonella performance kind of reminds me of tonight? He kind of reminds me of Zach Steffen's performance between DC versus Columbus. Because remember how Zach Steffen in that DC versus Columbus game, and how the first goal that Zach Steffen conceded was basically he just dropped the ball when the ball was coming into the box. And it was the same case again. The ball was coming into the box. It looked like Jeff Antonella was going to get that, but instead he just plainly dropped it, and Ruidíaz says, "Thank you very much," and he basically puts it into the back of the net. And just like Zach Steffen coming up big in the penalty kick shootout, look what Jeff Antonella did in this game. He came up big in the penalty kick shootout in this one. But before we get to the penalty kick shootout, you know, there was still a lot of things that happened. You know, the Sounders, it looked like they finally got that goal, and really, I thought maybe now they would potentially get another goal or two, because Portland basically did not attack throughout that moment. Like, they were just sitting back, and, you know, it was really, in some way, I could also say that I'm kind of relieved the fact that the Sounders finally scored that goal, because really, as a neutral, after watching the first 68 minutes, I just really hope someone would potentially score so that the game does get opened up. And the game did get opened up after that goal by Ruidíaz, and the Timbers did attack a little bit more after that, and eventually Blanco got the goal, and I think that was only like the second shot on goal that the Timbers had all game. And Blanco, of course, you know, at that point it looked like he scored the winning goal for the Timbers. Well, it was the equalizer, but it was the winning goal because of the aggregates. And you could kind of argue that Stefan Fry probably should have done a little bit better with this. I mean, Blanco didn't really hit this very well, but then again, he also had to. There was a lot of traffic in front of Fry there, and he did kind of had to react to that late, and because of that, Blanco's shot was able to just sneak past Fry, and at that point it was the equalizer for the Timbers. And then, just as you thought the Timbers was gonna grind it out in the last 10 minutes, Ruidíaz, of course, with an absolute world class of a volley. I mean, you talk about big players stepping in big moment. This is a classic example of that. Ruidíaz, by far, probably has been one of the best signings so far this season. And there has been a lot of good signing. You know, we had the Zlatan signing, and then we also have the Wayne Rooney signing. And you could argue that between this signing and the Wayne Rooney signing is probably the best signing we have seen in the summer transfer window in MLS. But man, what an impact Raul Ruidíaz has made with this team. He has completely lifted this team and pretty much ticked over the road that Clint Dempsey has been doing throughout his career with the Seattle Sounders. It's almost like the torch has already been passed, with Clint Dempsey passing to Ruidíaz, and Ruidíaz is just going to continue to be an amazing kind of goal scorer for this team. And then as we head into extra time, where every neutral, including myself, really wanted, we had more drama. Asprilla scored a goal in the 93rd minute. Actually, it's Asprilla. That's how you pronounce it. And, you know, Asprilla, I was surprised that he actually came on in this game. You know, he has not really had a very good season. And yes, he has definitely, whenever the big moment happened and whenever the playoffs comes, he at times have been able to step up. But knowing the season that he's been having, it was kind of a surprising move that Savarese decided to sub him in, and boy, did that paid off. And by the way, Asprilla also scored the winning penalty goal too, so he was a double hero in this game. And at that point, it looked like that was the winning goal for the Timbers, but, you know, the Timbers concede a penalty. The Sounders got a penalty after Valeri handballed it. There was actually 3 penalty shout from the Sounders in this game, and looks like the first 2 of them were pretty obvious that it was not a penalty. And the third one, you know, it's debatable whether or not if that should have been a handball. I mean, when the ball was kind of like popped up in Valeri's hand, you know, sometimes you could say that that ball just accidentally popped up in his hand. But at the same time, you can also say that, is that a natural position for Valeri to put his hand way up there? Because that seems like kind of an unnatural position for him. And even though the ball might accidentally pop up in his hand, if it's in an unnatural position, then the referee, of course, will call a penalty. And, you know, I was also surprised that they did not look at VAR in that instant, because this was a big moment. I mean, you got to make sure you get this right, because if you get this wrong, then the Timbers fan is going to really be mad. And, if they get this wrong, then the Timbers fans at that time will be very mad. Either the Timbers fan will be very mad at you because you got it wrong, or the Sounders fan will be very mad at you because you didn't call the penalty and you got that one wrong. So a little bit surprised they didn't look at VAR in that instant. But of course they did call the penalty. Ladero, of course, stepped up in the penalty, a cool and collected penalty to make it 3-2 at that point. And by the way, I know that when you look at this score, you're thinking, how did this one actually went into the penalty kick shootout? Isn't the Timbers supposed to be already winning this game? And believe it or not, the Timber player actually had probably the same feeling as you were, thinking that, hey, it's 3-2. The Timbers have 2 away goals over Seattle, so shouldn't they be able to move on into the conference final? Well, the only problem with that is that in MLS, extra time goals does not count in terms of away goal. So extra time, if the two leg or the aggregates is tied up, that means that heading into the extra time there will be no away goal rule. So even if the Timbers scored a goal and the Sounders equalized, the Timbers won't get that advantage. And of course, like I said, the Timbers player didn't know that. Valeri was actually celebrating, thinking that they already won that game. And I'm thinking that maybe that was what the Timbers were doing in the last couple of minutes, because they didn't really attack for the last couple of minutes. They thought that, yeah, it's over. We got the away goal rule. Oh, wait. In MLS, that is not how it works. And it looked like it was going to really come back to haunt them. And it was probably a classic example of never celebrate too early, even though technically they actually didn't know the rule. And I'm surprised that they don't know the rule. Like, seriously, if you're a professional football player, and I know for some of these players, they haven't been in MLS for a long time, and actually for Valeri, that's no excuse for him. Like, Valeri has been in the MLS for the last couple of years, and the fact that he still don't know that rule, that is kind of strange. But I understand that for some player that just enter MLS, in other country, this would have been a Timbers win. We wouldn't have to go to extra time. But yeah, somebody should have explained them that rule. And I kind of like this rule, the fact that extra time we don't have the away goal rule kind of enforced, because I just think that because the away goal rule still enforced, like what happened in the Champions League when they had the away goal rule enforced into extra time, that means the away team usually get a huge advantage out of that. But yeah, I like the way MLS did with this rule, and I'm just hoping other country will potentially adapt to it. And then eventually, when we get to the penalty kick shootout, by the way, the first free penalty was taken very nicely. Like, I thought for sure that, we're gonna have one of these penalty kick shootout where everybody's gonna make a penalty, and then eventually one guy is gonna miss it. But no, eventually the Sounders, they miss a couple of penalties, and I know Alonso, of course, missed a penalty. I forgot who is the other guy. Oh, Will Bruin, the dancing bear, missed a penalty in this game. And, the Timbers, of course, only missed one penalty. Liam Richwell was the only penalty that was saved from Stephen Fry. And, like I said, Aspira with the winning goal in this game. And, overall, when you look at this game, certainly this is heartbreak for the Sounders, because they try so hard in this game to potentially move on into the next round. And this also means that we will have two MLS Cup finalists that is not the previous MLS kind of finalists, so that we're gonna have like two new kind of team in MLS Cup that is not like last season. So what that means is that how TFC and Seattle Sounders are the two teams that play MLS Cup last season. Well, this year we're not going to have that, because the Sounders just got eliminated. And, I guess for some people, they're happy that the Sounders got eliminated, because they don't want to see them in another kind of MLS Cup final. And it kind of feels boring seeing the Sounders always there in the MLS Cup final. But at the same time, it's still heartbreak for the Sounders. They came so close, and in a penalty kick shootout, it is one of the cruelest thing in football, and it's kind of a coin toss in terms of these penalty kick shootout. Usually there's no kind of advantage in these penalty kick shootout, and unfortunately they just came into the wrong end of that. And as for the Portland Timbers, well, they won the penalty kick shootout, and now they, of course, move on into the next round. And I just wonder, are the Timbers going to try to do something they did a couple of years ago? Because a couple of years ago, remember when they won MLS Cup, they had a penalty kick shootout against Sporting KC, and that was also the game known as the double post game, because one of the penalty that Sporting KC missed hit both posts. And you wonder, is it going to be that kind of year where the Timbers are just going to go all the way into MLS Cup final. I mean, you know, right now, with them in the conference semifinal or conference final now, and they play either Sporting KC or RSL, they're only one step away from going back to the final. So, yeah, you wonder, is the Timbers going to do something they did again in 2015 and win the whole thing? We don't know. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash that subscribe button, and yeah, I will see you guys next time.